I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight to Town Hall for this DPW Safe Streets Greenwich presentation. As always, sometimes we've had some of these forums and big crowds here and people get passionate. To remember when we speak with civility and respect for each other, and everything will be fine. I do want to say how proud I am of DPW for the process they took in the data collection and getting feedback from the public. Yeah, lots of projects, well, all the projects we do, they put stuff out, and sometimes there's pushback, or sometimes there's other suggestions, and they'll listen. And we've had several follow-up meetings, and follow-up meetings to follow-up meetings, and they work at it until they get it right. So I want to thank them, and also just to know that this is something that, when Lauren and I ran and were sworn in on December 1st, 2019, I always say this, but public safety really was one of the things we wanted to focus on. Being somebody who grew up here and was an athlete and loving to exercise, there's a lot more cars now than when we were young doing that. And sadly, Connecticut had the most deadly year on record a few years ago with pedestrian fatalities. And unfortunately, Greenwich wasn't immune to that. We had several people that were hit and killed in the last 6 or 7 years, including one that I knew. So we want to make sure that people continue to get out there, hiking and biking and exercising, but doing so safely. And whether it's intersection improvements, crosswalks, sidewalks, you name it, new trails, we're out there working on not only getting feedback and doing research and data, but looking for grants and other public-private partnerships to increase our stock, and also, again, to make sure that Greenwich remains a place that people want to move to and can get out there and exercise freely and do so safely. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Kiselak. And again, thank you to everybody who came here tonight. Your presence shows that you care, so thank you.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you everybody for coming out and braving one more snowstorm. Hopefully the last one of the year for now. Oh, sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, yeah, so thank you all for coming out again tonight, and thank you, Fred, for the nice intro. So I'm Michael Kiselak. I'm a civil engineer in the Department of Public Works in our engineering division. Just one of the people that's been working hard on the Safe Streets action plan that we're here tonight to talk about, in addition to people from all across our town departments, and then the team at Stantec here that's been helping us. That'll be part of the presentation that we have here tonight. So next slide, Gabriella. You running them in the back there? All right, so just to quickly run through the agenda, what we're going to go through tonight. We're going to do go through the safety action plan, the draft of which is out on the website now. Hopefully some of you have had a chance to look at that. So we'll kind of go through the highlights on that and the main parts of it. Recap the safety analysis, which some of you may remember from last summer, but we'll dig back into that just as a refresher, and then go from there into the more recommendations that are in the plan, the prioritized investment network, which are the sort of high priority locations based on that safety analysis, as well as the policy recommendations that are in there. And then we'll talk about the next steps for the Safe Streets plan and project as a whole as well, and where we go from here on getting this plan finalized. Then after the presentation, we'll have a question and answer period. We don't have a huge crowd tonight, but as always, helps if we keep it brief and try not to repeat too much, but hopefully we'll see when we get there. And then after that, we have some interactive maps around the room and boards to do some breakout exercises and try to get some more detailed information on what people like and don't like in the plan, and try to get you some more time to talk intimately with the project team. Next slide. One more note on that last slide. So this is being streamed on Zoom as well, so there's people online listening. So we'll, and for anybody who couldn't make it, we'll make sure that this is posted afterwards, and all the materials will be posted online as well. So just an overview of Safe Streets in general. So this project is funded through the Federal Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A, program, and that is focused on eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries on Greenwich's roadways, but really all roadways across the country, because it is a national issue with over 40,000 people a year killed on roads throughout this country. So that's the goal of the overall program. And then with our plan, we want to build a capacity and strategies and ways that we can be supporting safety improvements both in the near term and then carrying that in the long term. So strategies that we can continue to implement over time and try to get the most bang for our buck on the projects that we're looking at doing, to try to have the most impact and go to the places where we can reduce those fatalities and serious injuries the most, based on a data-driven process. That's really the cornerstone of the whole SS4A program, is to have it really be a data-driven and defensible process. So you're trying to get the most bang for your buck out of your projects. And with that, we're trying to align ourselves to prepare for an implementation funding grant through that same program, since it provides planning money but also design and construction money. So that's sort of what's on the horizon that we're looking at after the plan is complete. Next slide. This is an overview of where we are in the process, which started about 2 years ago, give or take now, when we got the grant in 2024. And then throughout 2025, we were working on that data collection, the safety analysis throughout the first half of the year. And then the second half of the year, really turning that into the draft action plan that we have now. And looking forward, we're, based on the timing of the grants that we're expecting, we're trying to have the action plan wrapped up by late spring, early summer, to keep with those federal timelines on implementation grants. And to recap what's been going on around DPW in town since we had our last meeting in June on the safety analysis, I think it was June. We, as part of the Safe Streets project specifically, we had a demonstration project at Western Middle School. You can see the pictures here. A traffic calming project to really try to organize their driveways a little bit better, separate pedestrians from the cars, organize the traffic streams a little bit. And we had some really great artists from the middle school that came out and spent their day painting with us, and we're super appreciative of them for that. And so far, the only feedback we've gotten from the school has been positive on that. And now that the snow is gone, you can actually see what has been painted there again, which we thought came out quite nice. Here's just a little video showing how it sort of organizes the space and separates the traffic streams a little bit better. So that's an example of something we were able to do, in one afternoon, well, a full day, but able to get it out very quickly and have an immediate impact. So those are things we're looking at with the plan of doing more of. Next slide. Also related to the Safe Streets project, we in the fall met with a number of community stakeholders and groups and neighborhood associations on some of these locations that popped up in the safety analysis, to sort of start the conversation on what they see as the issues in a lot of these locations, and start the ball rolling on some actual concepts for plans that could make improvements there. So not really surprising, but a lot of the issues that came up at a lot of those locations were, speeding, turning, visibility, sidewalks, crossing the street, things like that. So not necessarily a big surprise if you've been following along thus far, but it helped us to get some good specific information at key locations. Next slide. And then also, townwide, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, I think it's a hot topic now, but the police department, who's one of our partners in this, has started their speed enforcement camera program, and to really promote safety in school zones, and preliminary information data coming from that is that it has been having a positive effect. So we know people are still sort of getting used to it, but we're encouraged thus far and hoping to see that trend continue and hopefully get that smoothed out. Yeah.
What are you calling positive effects here? Around schools, just curious about.
Yeah, a reduction in speeding, in the amount of speeding that they're seeing, yeah. Also, since we last saw you a month or two ago now, we went to the Board of Selectmen, who I think are all in the audience here tonight. Thank you for coming. To adopt a resolution to formalize the town's commitment to roadway safety. So it's a requirement of a qualified Safe Streets Action Plan, but it also helps us to have something to point to say that, yes, this is a priority for the town and it's something we take seriously. So we thank them for that. We, in addition to the Safety Action Plan, one of the companion documents we've been working on is the Toolbox of Countermeasures, which is an engineering document that goes with it that sort of provides a number of safety treatments that could be done at intersections that we can pull from on a context-specific location. So it's something that we're going to work into our workflows at DPW and try to we can apply, town-wide, and it helps us. It's a very data-based document, with empirical data on ways that we can address certain situations, and so that's also available online as of this week. And then just some projects that we've had going on around town, just so it's not just the Safe Streets Action Plan. It's we're out there every day trying to make the roads safer, and it's a daunting job. But just in the last year, we've had a number of things going on, such as the Greenwich Avenue ADA and sidewalk upgrades. We've installed a number of RFBs, and we have a few more coming very soon. Now that the weather's clearing up, we have a few signal improvements going on around town. And then some more sidewalk and pedestrian safety improvements that are under design and coming soon this spring. Okay. And then I'll kick it over to Kate from Stantec to talk more about the draft action plan itself.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to see you tonight. Thank you again for braving the snow. So last but not in any way, shape, or form least, the other thing that we've been hard at work on over the course of this past year has been developing a safety action plan for the town to really codify a lot of the different pieces of information we've been gathering into one place to help the town decide how and where to move forward. And so I'm going to walk through some of the highlights of that plan. I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm going to give you sort of the snapshot, the high-level view. It is available online. That QR code should work. I encourage you to check it out. But the plan really has three big elements. It has an existing conditions analysis, taking a look very heavily at safety data and understanding sort of where crashes are occurring in Greenwich, why, how, who's being affected, as well as input from you in terms of where you see issues, where you see challenges. And that has taken also a form of understanding of some of the sort of operational policy questions that also are how the town does business and how those can be leveraged to improve safety. And then it has a series of recommendations, really going through that safety analysis to suggest a list of locations that should be prioritized to get to that goal of zero traffic fatalities, some specific recommendations for Route 1, and then some, again, broader policy recommendations overall that allow sort of all the different sort of levers, all the different tools the town has to be pulled together to address this safety challenge. So next slide. So the plan really, it's a roadmap to safety, and it's really a roadmap to address this problem, that traffic fatalities, in particular what we call crash fatalities and severe injuries, you'll see KSI is the abbreviation, they've been going up, and they've been going up pretty steadily for the course of the study period. Since 2019, it's in fact almost doubled, and our goal is to reverse that trend, to flip it the other way around. So next slide. And so what we've done is thought through a safety analysis. And it's a multi-layered safety analysis that tries to get all the different ways that we can understand safety into one place. It starts, I'll talk through each of the different layers, so don't strain your eyes. It's a little hard to read on this one. But it starts up at the top with a risk analysis, with a trend analysis. And that creates what's called a high injury network. It's looking at where are crashes occurring, and in particular, where are the fatal and severe crashes occurring. We then take a look at risks and try to understand where can we predict that a crash might occur, because there are things about that road, things about the land use context that we know from other data nationally tend to be correlated with traffic crashes. And then we take data from you guys. Some of you guys may remember there was an interactive map available online. All of that data got geocoded and put into that layer. All of them get, in my very fancy technical terms, smushed together to create a prioritized investment network, really trying to help the town focus in on the specific locations, a really key list of locations to look at and focus on to get, as Michael was saying, the most bang for your buck in terms of addressing safety. So quick look through those layers. That first one, the trends analysis, the high injury network, we found that all of Greenwich's traffic fatalities and injuries were actually happening only on 10% of the roads. And that's, one, terrifying, but also really, really helpful for the town, because it means by addressing that 10% of roads, those 27 miles, by addressing them, you can really focus on the places where the majority of those crashes are really happening.
That 10%, is it localized, is it centralized? In one area?
It's all over. I mean, it is, as you can see, it's a lot of the sort of downtown and southern Greenwich, but there are places throughout the town as well. And then, so on the risk level, we then, as I was saying, there's national data out there. Like traffic fatalities, traffic injuries, they kind of follow patterns. We know, for example, that speeding is disproportionately, just across the board in all forms of data, speeding is the thing that is one of the biggest predictors of a traffic crash, and particularly one of the biggest predictors of a traffic crash that it's going to result in a fatality or a severe injury. And so we took a look at all of those different factors here in Greenwich to see which of those things were happening here, which were disproportionately happening, based on how many places, you have a senior housing, or how many senior housing locations there are crashes disproportionately happening around them, for example. And we found in that case that yes, the severe and fatal crashes were 3 times more likely near senior housing. When you talked about pedestrian crashes, they were 6.5 times more likely. Similar numbers for schools, places around schools, similar numbers for those bigger roads, the 4-lane travel roads, high-speed corridors. And so we layered that into the safety analysis as well to sort of start to predict places where even if a crash hasn't occurred yet, we can do some work in that location now to make sure that one doesn't. And then the last layer, but last but not least, is, if you want to go forward one more, is of course what you guys said. And this is also reproduced over there on that board, so you can look in the back of the room later. But we took all of that information we got from the online map and from the public meeting back in June, geocoded all of it, and put that in as well to try to understand what you guys were seeing in terms of where you saw risk, where you saw challenges, where stuff felt unsafe. 3 really big trends came out of that. Again, real concerns about speeding, real need for thinking and rethinking around intersections and crosswalks, places where people are crossing the road, and honestly, a real big desire for sidewalks, for a network, for ways that people can move safely and comfortably throughout the town outside of a vehicle. So those were sort of the 3 big trends. And then, next slide, all of those got put together, again, the crash trends, the risks, the community input, put together into what we call a prioritized investment network. And this is the list of the places where Greenwich should invest its time, invest its resources now in order to address traffic fatalities. These are the places where the majority of traffic fatalities are occurring, where we can expect that they can occur, and where you guys have said that you feel unsafe or that there are problems out there. And within that, we identified 20 locations for sort of near-term improvements. Those are sort of like the 20 off the top of the list. And then the idea here is that the list would be updated. Once you address those first 20, you update the list and keep going. There's more to do at all times, but this list gives you a way to start, because it's really, really daunting to be like, fix everything. You can't do that. That's a lot of miles. But you can say, we can start addressing this problem if we start here. Here are the worst offenders. Let's go here. And so with that, I'm going to hand this back to Michael for a second to talk a little bit about some of the specifics of those locations.
Yes, thank you, Kate. So as Kate said, we smushed everything together and came up with still a pretty significant mileage of roads, and it's a daunting thing to start with. So we picked the top 20 locations to focus on. And as you saw in the last slide, probably you may have noticed that Route 1 is basically all green, which is probably not a surprise because it's the main 4-lane arterial. The problem with that is it's not our road, so it's a state-owned facility. So we didn't want the top 20 to be all Route 1. So we have I believe it's 5 locations in this list that are Route 1, and we're working with the state on those, talking to them about those. And then the rest of them are local roads that we can have a much quicker and more local impact on. So I'm not going to go through every single one in detail, but these maps are reproduced in the back of the room on the boards, so that we can talk with you all more about specific locations and see, like, are these places, like, does this feel right? Like, these are the places where where it makes sense, there are issues are happening, and you know, talk about what you might like to see there. We've already started working on some of these to develop concept plans. Going back to those walking charrettes we did back in the fall, we have started putting together some preliminary ideas on what we can do with those, but we definitely want to get more of a broad sense of what people would be looking for in those locations. And then the other thing to point out on this, if you can read it, but some of them we already have active projects in the area, which is actually a good sign to us that, you know, certain things are being addressed proactively. We get a lot of requests all over town, as you can imagine, and a lot of them many of them are good requests. You know, one that's an example that's coming up soon is the Railroad Avenue at Prospect Street. We have, there's no pedestrian push buttons there now, so we have a project that's going to be breaking ground in the next couple of months to add that. So that's on the list, but that's something that's already actively being addressed. But most of the locations we are working on concept plans to address the safety issues we see there. Next slide, Gabriella. And yeah.
That list of 21, is it ranked? You know, is number one the worst
Yes.
situation?
Yeah, so there's a score behind all of this, and then so there's more than just those roads, but these are the ones that we're focusing on, yes. And so to help us, to take it one step further, to help us with figuring out what are the actual issues at some of these locations, since we have a huge data set town-wide, we've focused on these locations with some fact sheets that are in the action plan in the appendix that you can go take a look at, but really zooming in on what are the crashes there, what are the severities, what are the risk factors that we're seeing. So these are 2 examples pulled out of the back of the report: Stanwich Road, Indian Rock Lane, and Fairfield, you know, in the vicinity of Central Middle School and Greenwich High School, and then also Arch Street at Soundview Drive, you know, right here downtown. So those are just 2 of the locations as an example that we're looking at. And we have some of these printed out in the back for anybody that wants to take them home, but they are all available. So that's really helping us to look closer at these locations and see what are the patterns. And so we have one of those sheets for basically all of those locations on the list from the previous page. Question?
I have a question. You mentioned accidents. Have you done a survey of a automobile at fault or are they a pedestrian at fault? To me, that would make a big difference on how you go about what you're doing.
Yeah, Kate, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked through the crash data on all of these different crashes. Fault's a little tricky to sort of ascertain on a lot of them. And I think part of the thing is that sometimes fault has to do with some of the structural conditions. And so what we've really tried to do is analyze the quantity of crashes, where they've occurred, and then all the other factors, the turning movements, the vehicle volumes, to come up with design solutions so that, I mean, the sort of fundamental core of all of this is that people should be able to make mistakes. And they should be able to make mistakes and not pay for them with their lives. And so our job with a lot of these designs and a lot of this thinking is to come up with ways so that even when somebody isn't paying attention, even when they're not totally doing the right thing, a crash still doesn't happen. So that's the sort of broad brush answer.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on from those one-pagers, kind of focusing in on Route 1 for a second, since it is obviously a very important link through town, even though it's not owned by the town. It's still how many people get around every day, and it definitely influences all the travel patterns through Greenwich, or many of them at least. So trying to work with the fact that it's not our facility, but DOT does have a parallel effort that happens to be going on right now, which is their planning and environmental linkages project, which is a little bit more of a regional plan, focused really on Greenwich, but on this part of Connecticut, but a little bit higher level look, 95 and Route 1 and some other major routes. So they have a concurrent plan that they're doing, and we want to, be able to message to them what Greenwich wants to see on Route 1 as they consider what projects and plans they move forward. So we've tried to break down Route 1 into 3 separate typologies to help establish some goals and provide some types of treatments that might be able to help with those. So we have central Greenwich, the downtown area, the Coscob area, where it's a little bit denser. You have buildings up closer to the street. You have on-street parking. So it feels a little different than on the east and west end of town, where it's a little bit more suburban. Buildings are set back. You have no parking. And then there's the area around I-95 on the east side of town, that has its own influence area. So those are the 3 areas we've tried to focus on and provide some information to DOT as they work on their plan. And that's obviously something we want to get more feedback from you all tonight on what are the things you would like to see to help us when we have conversations with the state on what people want to see or not see on that corridor. Okay. Back to Kate.
So as I was sort of starting to allude, this whole plan is really based on what's called a safe system approach. And that's saying that you can't really solve traffic fatalities with just one tool. So for example, you might say, oh, we'll put in breathalyzer locks in all cars, but if the driver isn't drunk, it's not going to do anything. So a lot of what this plan really is trying to do is look at all the different things that Greenwich can do. We talked a lot about the sort of road design and the sort of, in this category, the safer roads and safer speeds categories of it. But there's other things that the town has at its disposal and ways that it can think about the ways it does business that can also help contribute to the safety conversation. Things like education or communications, things about post-crash information, how you collect the data, how do you use that data. Even things like the types of vehicles the town drives or are on the streets. All of those things go into the safety equation. And so they're all sort of considered in this plan as part of the policy recommendations to go just beyond road design to figure out all the different ways that safety can be addressed. These are just sort of illustrative examples on the bottom, but the goal is to go from all the potential traffic fatalities down to that 0, and to do that, you need all the tools. So the really nice thing is that Greenwich has got some fantastic foundations for this. You have things like the Speed Hammer program, which are reducing speeds. You have a pretty substantial roster of ongoing safety projects. You've got a strong set of communications platforms and sort of established communications tools to talk with people and reach people. And you've got some previous planning documents, an inventory of pedestrian safety needs, an ADA transition plan. And our goal really was to look through all of those and think about how we can leverage them and do more. So the plan also outlines, if you want to go to the next slide, 16 different policy recommendations. And we actually grouped them into a bunch of different categories: leadership and coordination, data and information transparency, roadway design, and education and community engagement. They're all in the plan. Again, go read the plan. But I'm going to take you through just a couple of them to sort of give you a sense of what's in there and sort of what you can expect. So 4 of them just to sort of call your attention to on the next slide. The first one, as Michael mentioned at the beginning, is there's money out there for additional safety projects, and we very strongly encourage the town to apply for that money. And there's a variety of things that the town is doing, for example, with this plan, with that resolution, that set them up to be very strong, to set you guys up to be really strong to apply for that money and continue really going from this planning stage into the design and implementation stage. One of the things we heard loud and clear throughout all of the engagement was a desire for a sidewalk network, more sidewalks, a shared use path network, a bike network, ways that people can move comfortably around the town outside of vehicles. You have the sidewalk inventory. It needs to be updated, and so that would be a recommendation in this plan to really think through what are today's needs for mobility around the town of Greenwich and how that can be packaged together so that then the town can, again, competitively apply for funding to make those a reality. Two more sort of slightly more internal recommendations, a sort of a formalization of a conversation between PD and DPW so that after a crash occurs, both a police officer and an engineer go to investigate that crash location, because there's stuff that each isn't going to see. A police officer is not going to necessarily see road design issues that might be contributors. An engineer isn't necessarily going to see behavior issues that might be contributors. Putting them both together in the same time in the same place gives you such a wealth of information that allows you to really understand what happened, why it happened, and how you can make sure it doesn't happen again. And similarly, in that sort of slightly more internal bucket, there are a variety of different opportunities to do things like what was done at Western Middle School, thinking about things at that sort of quick build tactical level, and doing them at a programmatic level, thinking about there's some things, let me back up. There are some things on that prioritized investment network that are gonna be big projects. They're gonna involve lots of repaving and curbs and sewers and all sorts of very complicated things. Those are going to be big projects. There may be some of them on there that aren't going to involve that can be done at least on a temporary or tactical basis with sort of easier, faster materials. And so thinking through what are those projects and looking again at that holistically at a program level and being able to just identify those projects and develop a quick build program will be very beneficial to having the town move through some of those safety locations faster. So there's lots more, again, there's 16 of them in the plan. Highly recommend that you take a look at them. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Michael to sort of close you out on the what we're going to do for the rest of the evening.
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're increasing the density in downtown Greenwich. Proposed and on the table are multiple units where businesses once stood. Now, when you're getting that volume of people living in downtown Greenwich, is your plan or master plan taking that into consideration as you're making these changes to be more cost effective?
So all of the street design treatments that are sort of outlined in the toolkit and sort of all those locations that are outlined already in the plan are things that will work and are very effective at a variety of different scales and a variety of different densities. There's not a specific set of like, you should do exactly here, there. What the plan really does is outlines the locations of places where we know there's an issue today and those need to be addressed. And then structural things about how the town does business that can help them predict those types of issues and get on top of them and in advance. So we can get back to that in the questions.
Yeah, that's a good question and a reason, why this plan should be, and the PIN should be updated every 5 years because, development patterns change, things change all around town constantly. So we want to try to stay abreast of that and make improvements where we can so that we give people alternatives to cars to get around so that they feel safe doing so that we lessen the impact of some of that new development that does occur.
Such a concentration in downtown, especially at the bottom of the avenue.
Yeah.
And then you're putting on Benedict Place and then couple that with where the dealerships were, a lot of units.
Yeah, so our job is to try to make sure that people have safe ways to get around and to try to get ahead of some of that development and work with those developers that are coming in and try to make sure that it's something that we can feel comfortable with. So yeah, it's not an easy question by any means, but thank you for the question. So we'll have time for more questions in a minute. I'm just going to close out the presentation here with the timeline. So we're here already in March of 2026, which is a little bit hard to believe. But here we are. So we're based on where we expect the grant funding to be announced for the implementation money through the Safe Streets program. So we're looking to have to take all this feedback into account over the next couple months and finalize the plan by late spring, early summer. There are also the concept plans we've been working on. We're going to be trying to get those out to the public so that you're all aware of that after we get some more input from you all here tonight and further refine those and work on those. Those aren't necessarily final by any means. They're very preliminary concepts, and it kind of is dependent on if we are successful in getting that implementation money. We'd have opportunities once we get that to then further refine those and do more robust public feedback on those specific locations. But still, it's good for us to get some of that feedback sooner. So that's what we'll be up to over the next couple months. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting a lot of good feedback here tonight and through, through the website, and incorporating that in this draft over the next couple weeks. So the comment period for this will be open for through the end of March, since everything's been posted online for a couple weeks already. So give people a couple more weeks to review it and provide input. So I think with that, if there are any questions remaining in the room, I saw Vin's hand first. Anything before we start? Questions? No? Jim, something you want to say? Yes, so good point. Yeah, good point. So we'll pass the mic around just so that people online can hear what's going on. And just make sure the green light, press the button for the green light.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Oh boy, it's loud. Just to clarify, because I'm not sure that I heard it correctly, the timeline regarding the implementation funding that you hope to secure, there seems like there's a sense of urgency to get the plan done in time for this year's grant, implementation grant. So clarify that.
Yes, so that is the requirement to apply for the implementation funding, which is a big federal pot of money. It's very competitive, but it's to have a completed safety action plan. And so we expect, based on prior years, that will be due early summer. That's when the application is due for the implementation grant. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, well, it does, I mean, partially, but also the BET has already advanced. I assume you went in and asked for funding from the town that would be reimbursed by that implementation grant. Is that correct?
Yes, so it is a reimbursement grant. So we've been projecting a few years out on what we think we may need to bring this plan to life. We've been planning for that in the long-term plan on that. Yep. If Jim, if you have anything else on that you want to say. Jim Michael, the commissioner, who's much more in tune with the budgetary workings than I am, if he wants to add anything.
Yeah, each year we have on our long-term projections different projects for this specific program. So we've asked for some money this year, and then for future years we have it kind of earmarked for potential projects, depending on the results of the grant application and success there.
Start down here.
Yeah, of the money, thanks, Rachel. Do you expect to have it fully reimbursed by these implementation grants, or will the town be covering a portion of it?
So the way the Safe Streets program works, it's 80% federal and 20% local match on all projects for plans, construction, design, anything. Up at the front.
Yes, I was really impressed with the online list of the study that you've done. I'm a landscape architect. I work in the other two C states also, Colorado and California. We use a lot of splayed speed bumps there. Is that something you've been considering? And the other thing, one of my favorite things the state has said is that for village districts, you can limit the speed to 5 miles an hour. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of 5 miles an hour. That's pretty low. I don't know that we'd have success with that based on what we've dealt with in the state in the past. But yeah, so your question about speed humps, yeah, so that is in the toolbox of countermeasures. They're a tool. We are, looking to refine our approach to those, make sure we work with our emergency partners, because obviously it's very important to them. We don't have any places identified to actually put them right this moment, but it is a tool, a tool just like any other that we're looking to make sure we use where it's appropriate. So yeah, we're looking into that. Yep.
Okay. 2 questions. I had thought that the state had come out with a program where you could put in red light cameras for people running red lights, in Riverside, where we're close to 95 and people are coming down, it's a real risk, at least through our section. I can't comment on other areas. And I didn't know if we had added that as part of your safety plan. I apologize for not reading it. But that seems like a big deal. And then, second question, on the speed cameras, I didn't see that Riverside and Eastern Middle School area had been put on the list. I don't think we have as big a deal on speeding, but I was wondering if that was part of the plan down the road.
Sure, yeah, so the first question about the red light running cameras, so that was all part of the legislation with the speed cameras that was enacted by the state a couple years ago. So the way the town decided to go, headed up by PD, was to start with the speed cameras and try that as a pilot and see how that goes, work out the kinks with the ticketing and everything like that, see how that goes, and then come back and look at if more locations for speed cameras are justified, if it's going well, if it's working, and then red light cameras are in that bag as well, to see if it makes sense in the future. We don't have any locations on that right now. There are some safety concerns with them, with people stopping short and actually maybe ending up with more rear ends and things like that you have to be careful with in the way that you don't necessarily with speed cameras. But yeah, it is something that is in the plan as something to look into as that speed camera program evolves. And yeah.
One follow-up question. On crosswalks, like Eastern Middle School, on Lockwood, right by the tennis court, it's a curve. It would be great to have a flashing light so that people press, and I don't know if that's something on your quick hit, because it would, at least in our area, the crosswalks don't, at least in middle school, the kids are smart enough to wait to see that the car stops, but it just still seems like it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, the flashing lights, the RRFBs, we have those in a lot of places and a lot of school zones. They're unfortunately not very cheap, so we don't always have budget to install them, but we do keep a list of locations where we've been asked for them. I don't know that we've been specifically asked for that one before, so we can certainly add that to the list. And then as budget becomes available, we try to prioritize based on what's in the area and how many people are crossing in that location, and try to. Yeah, so that's like right here in front of Town Hall. You press the button and get the yellow lights to work. And then to your other question about the speed cameras at Riverside and Eastern. So I know the police surveyed every single school around Greenwich, and then they selected the 10 worst offenders to use for the pilot program. So it doesn't mean they're not coming there in the future. It's too soon to say.
I'd just like to second the Riverside, the problems on Riverside. Now, Riverside Avenue is unbelievable. The speeding that goes on there, and that's right near, the middle school. And there's a crosswalk, and why can't we, well, you just said, though, it was very expensive. We should have the crosswalk with the flashing lights, as many as we can get, because that's the best thing. And I also feel, why aren't we giving tickets to people speeding on Riverside Avenue? I used to live there, right there, I know, and I pick up my granddaughter every day, and it's just impossible. You see, people are not obeying the speed limit. Well, I don't know what the answer is, but.
Yeah, and one thing on, we have started a program, and we've been, we have been supported the last couple of years with funding for what we're calling our traffic safety improvements, and that's where we've primarily been trying to utilize that funding for these RFBs, the crosswalk flashing signs. So we've started to really push those out and trying to look at opportunities on where they can be placed and so forth. So that's definitely a push. One thing with a lot of these projects, and a lot of times, we really appreciate everybody here, and we hope that everybody in town is very positive towards projects, but oftentimes when we propose a project, we sometimes get a little bit of pushback, and that might be an understatement, but all these projects definitely can raise some discussion points. And so, we also like to encourage people, if you do hear about a project, even if you think it's a great idea, we always are looking for support when we go to these different public meetings, because oftentimes the people that come out for these public meetings are the people that are opposed to this, because everybody else thinks, hey, this is something the town's going to do. So the only reason I have to come out is because, to try and oppose this. But that isn't always the way that it works. So, so we're always looking for the help and the support on these projects. So just think about that, because, we all spend a lot of time, we're all trying to improve things in general, and that's what we're looking for, so.
I just want to echo what Jim said. We work really hard, DPW works really hard, other agencies and departments do, to get grants. And just the example I always bring up is a few years ago, we were told we were not in compliance with ADA regulations. And we also wanted to slow traffic down around the avenue, where the most dangerous intersection we had was Arch Street and Greenwich Avenue. So we fought for and received a $2.8 million grant. It went through a year's worth of approvals. A few people decided that they didn't like it, and it takes one person just to appeal to the RTM. And they had a few people do it. You had all types of misinformation. They were even trying the Complete Streets, which is all over the world, to a communist organization, follow the money, they said. So it was death by 1,000 cuts. We warned them that we had to do this work anyway. They succeeded in getting the RTM to reject the $2.8 million. We had to give it back to the state, which we had applied to. Another municipality took it immediately. And guess what? We're doing all those intersections now on our dime. So be careful. Jim's right. We only hear, when we do all these projects, people come out en masse to oppose. Sometimes it's the same people, but this is what they do. And we want constructive criticism. Things are thoroughly vetted. That's a good thing. But at some point, you need to get to yes, especially when we've been warned by the federal government that we're not in compliance. So please remember that when you see these things, like tonight, this is a great showing, and you care. You're here because you care. But remember, keep an eye on this stuff, because when we have these forums, that's what comes out usually, is people to oppose.
I have the microphone, thanks. I'm asking about the Route 1 recommendations and the signal improvements. Is that including this concurrent pedestrian signal? Is that part of these improvements? And if so, I'm vehemently opposed, and I can go into that.
The Route 1 project is a separate project that's getting ready to get underway. But I can assure you, we have done everything we can on those plans to make sure that they are safe. And regardless of concurrent versus exclusive. Concurrent pedestrian phasing is used all over the world, many major cities. We've done everything else we can with leading pedestrian intervals to make sure that is the case as well. And then obviously we're going to be we know people care a lot about it, and it's somewhat of a new thing for many people, so we're going to be very, very, very closely watching those intersections. And if programming needs to change because we're having issues, we are certainly into that.
But are you saying that it is in the plan to have concurrent signals?
Yes, concurrent and exclusive pedestrian phasing are two tools that can be used in various circumstances.
Well, currently we have exclusive.
We have both at town.
Right, but okay, on the Route 1 corridor between the Stamford border and St. Catharines, that is currently exclusive. And my concern is that one of your tools in your signal improvements and Route 1 recommendations is to go from exclusive to concurrent. So when's the moment for me or others to stand up and say, please don't change it?
It's not necessarily the case that concurrent is less safe than exclusive pedestrian phasing. It's sort of context dependent. So, but once that project has already gone out to bid, it has been reviewed by our staff, consultants, state DOT, to ensure that it follows all best practices, all engineering standards.
Can you
and-
define which particular intersections are going to become concurrent?
Do you want an explanation?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Jim looks like
Yeah,
he wants to chime in.
Really quick, the differences between, and this week, I'd prefer to just, because we're trying to deal with this overall project, I'd like to redirect us back to that in a second. But the big difference between concurrent pedestrian signals and exclusive pedestrian signals, exclusive pedestrian signals mean you push the button, all the lights turn red, and then the pedestrians get the white walking man to allow them to cross the street. Concurrent pedestrian signals mean you push a button, and when the traffic is moving north and south, the pedestrian movement moves north and south at the same time. It's very similar to what you see like in downtown New York City when you're walking through the intersections there and traffic's going across the street and pedestrians are crossing the street at the same time. So that's the same, that's the differences between those two. Leading pedestrian interval means you push the button, the walking man comes on 4 to 7 seconds prior to the traffic being able to go. What does that do? That allows the pedestrians to get into the travel lane, be visible before traffic starts to move so that vehicles can then see that pedestrians are looking to be in the crosswalk and pay attention to that. That's the, a mechanism that we're incorporating into that project. But, so, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank you so much. I can tell a lot of work went into this, and thank you, Fred, too. My name is Maggie Cassidy, and I live on an element in Shore Road in Old Greenwich that has excessive speeding and no sidewalks. So I would just ask that if there's an opportunity to revisit some of the eligible areas, or as you consider the inventory, we would be very grateful. We have young children, they're elderly. There have been so many cars that come down that road from Stanford, and it's gotten to the point where I'm literally driving my kids to their bus stop. We are also lacking crosswalks at that bus stop as well. So I just wanted to flag that, and we'd be happy to host neighbors or constituents to see it at our house. And we'd love, and we also submitted a petition signed by 25 residents of Shore Road, many of whom are on the Zoom tonight, to the DPW on Tuesday.
Yeah, and so I think you were also you were in on some of the multi-use path meetings and so forth. And as part of that project, I know that project isn't moving forward at this point, but as part of that project, we've identified a couple specific areas that we're going to do further research on to try and put that on. And the spot that you're talking about is one of those. And so that will be continuing our research on making sure that we can try to get that put into the queue for funding for getting a new sidewalk over there. So, Ernst?
Thank you. So thank you for all the work that's has been done so far. And I know this is a complex situation, a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. But one of the 2-3 central points that are in the report in its draft form right now, I think also deserve to be highlighted. One is really the confusion in communication. Where do we go? How is it decided, and so on, because our town government is very, very big. I know Mr. Camillo is our CEO. Rachel and Lauren are here as well. So, you know, the interaction between BOS, the BET, the money, once in a while planning and zoning comes along, and DPW. I think, to me, the biggest point in the study is a very simple one. Where is the overall traffic planner and the safety champion? And right now, we're in the middle of the BET budgeting process and so on, and we don't need to wait till all these papers are finalized if we're really serious about this. Unfortunately, I don't see any BET members sitting here tonight. Sorry if I missed that. Yeah, it's hidden there, so thank you for being here. But I would really like, Fred, please, can we really have that safety champion? Mr. Michael and Gabriela and Michael, they already have tons to do, right? And the winter service was outstanding this year. I know we're kind of overworked in many ways, but I think, protecting lives and facilitating that vehicles can flow and can go where they need to go, pedestrians and cyclists and so on. We all love our town and we want to be safe. So I think I would really, as a taxpayer, appreciate an extra effort. Let's please get that safety champion in. One other thing regarding the concurrent and the exclusive lights, Michael, it's not just Riverside, Stamford. It's especially also in the Cos-Cob corridor. And you have heard from many, particularly around the schools, that concurrent is not really a good idea. We need to have that exclusive, especially where the elderly and small children are around. And for Michael, for you, just very specifically, on Orchard, on the backside of Cos-Cob School, there is those flashing lights. I see students not pressing the button. The first time when I saw it as a driver, I thought the lights were too close to the sidewalk. The lights are too close to the crosswalk. So I think, I don't know whether there is federal or state or whatever laws, those lights need to be a bit farther away from the crosswalk so that drivers really get alerted earlier. If I'm already within 20 feet where the danger is, I will not be able to stop, even if I pay attention. So thank you so much.
I'd like to address two things. One, if you're going to be working with the state on US 1, I had the opportunity recently to walk from Darien to Greenwich, and there were sidewalks all the way on the south side. As soon as I hit Greenwich, one of the first things I hit were no sidewalks on the south side, so I hope you're addressing that. The other thing I'd like to address is you seem to be doing structural things, which I think is fantastic. I've got over 65,000 miles walking in town. I've been walking since '81. And I've discovered, number one, there's a law on the books, unless it's changed, that if there are no sidewalks, it's a law to be facing traffic. Half the people I see are jogging or walking on the wrong side of the road when there are no sidewalks. And that in itself is a danger. And I think maybe we can go to the schools and start there, teaching these kids which side of the road to walk on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's definitely, increasing the educational outreach is definitely part of the plan. We have Bob here in the audience who does a lot of that with biking, and so yeah, that's a good point.
So that was a good lead into this. I'm Bob D'Angelo. I'm on the Active Transportation Task Force with Vin and a group of people, and we got kind of lucky a little while ago with Dr. Tony Jones. I think the e-bike, the dangers of e-bike made her a little bit more aware of the importance of trying to institutionalize a safety curriculum for pedestrians and bikes in the schools. Many towns and cities in the United States do that. Every third grader gets a special curriculum. So she sent me to Dr. Bensavenga, the Old Greenwich principal, who I know real well. Been working with Old Greenwich students for a couple of years on different things. And they have a pilot program going that's a bike pedestrian safety thing. We just completed last week the gym part of it, talking about like just what you said, where you're supposed to be on the road and what you're supposed to do. And next week we go outside and do the drills outside with their bikes, and then they take a lap around the beach on a Sunday when there's no cars. And the plan is, if that's successful, which I'm sure that program's going to be successful, then Dr. Jones is willing to try to have all the elementary schools do that program as part of a canned curriculum for every third grader. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. I think that's really good. On your slide there, you had, safer people, that wafer there. I would ask you you have it, driver's education and stuff. I think it's really important that you put youth, kids, cycle education on that, just to make it all users.
Yeah, definitely.
How about don't walk distracted, right, and don't drive distracted? I mean, how many people are paying attention when they're walking on the phones?
Yeah, definitely. I will point out when the Q&A wraps up, we've got boards in the back of the room, and one of the 16 recommendations is a real expansion of all of the educational curriculum, and exactly what you're saying would be a great suggestion to put up on those boards as things that can be built in.
And I would say, you know, we've teamed with DPW and GPD to go into the schools, and I really commend the work that you're doing here. I think with the new Civic Center, we have an incredible opportunity to try to institutionalize a day where families go there and they get a safety day for driving or bicycles, scooters, e-bikes, everything pedestrians. That would be a really good step forward to do that.
Okay, in the back, you already have the mic, yeah.
First, this is amazingly well done. Your work is really extraordinary, and I'm sorry I haven't been involved sooner. Years ago, Gara Garabedian was the traffic engineer for the town of Greenwich, and the schools, when they brought in the bus loops, the research behind it says the bus loops need to be separated from the traffic, from the cars. And at Eastern Middle School, it wasn't done, although his recommendation was to create a curb cut, and there's a road that could go straight through so that you could easily separate the parents picking up. It would make it a better situation because the pickup, you wouldn't have any cars backing up onto the street at all, and there'd be plenty of pickup area along this one way. So I'm just wondering, did you visit the bus loop, the schools where the separation of the bus loop from the residential traffic? That's one thing. And then a separate thing I just want to share with you, on the Route 1, I'm on the Pell Committee for I-95, and I've been pushing from the get-go the need for a left-hand turning lane at Sheep Hill, just so you know. And they are hearing it now, so anything that you can do to reinforce that, it would make a huge difference for those folks that have to take that left-hand turn. But anyway, the bus loop, was there any talk about the schools and the bus loops? And
We didn't get into that site-specific level of detail, but that is the kind of thing that we would look at if, I know the school building committees look at that stuff very closely when those projects come up, as Lauren knows all too well. Jim might know a little more on the background of that site. I don't know if we need to get into it, but, yeah, no, okay, no, yeah. Over here.
Yes. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and also thank you for, in the past few years, incorporating the feedback from, us residents on the projects that you've been doing, especially the US 1 signal phasing. A few thoughts. One, I'm happy to see Indian Field Road is on the list, to be looked at. Our community group surveyed all of the residents on that road, and the vast majority of them, especially those from Osceola to US 1, do want a sidewalk in front of their home. And hopefully the money for the small section of sidewalk between the park and 95 will be approved this year by the BET. That would be great. Just one thought I had. Is there any plan to work with, I don't know who does it, but the state or whoever, for when they replace the railroad bridge and when they replace the bridge over the Mianus River for 95, to incorporate a multimodal path on there for pedestrians and cyclists? I think that would be something, great to fight for. I know Westport has one on their railway bridge over the Saugatuck River, and it allows commuters to walk right to the rail station. It could connect Riverside, to Coscob Park right there, to allow residents and children from Riverside to come over to Coscob Park and utilize that, and just be another, way to get pedestrians and cyclists across the Mianus River without having to utilize US 1 or the bridge further up. But thank you for listening to us again and for the great job you guys are doing.
Yeah, that location is certainly a known bottleneck. I don't think there's any plans at the moment to get into that.
Yeah, I think I'll just make a comment, and it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but that specific request was something that was looked at many years ago, the last time they looked at improving that bridge there. And the community came out very strongly against it, to the point where there was almost, I think there was actually, from what I've been told, a lawsuit against the state to do something like that at that time. Now, that was many years ago, and the way that people travel these days is significantly different. So if and when that happens again, I think it would be something that the town is very much forward towards looking at those options, but we would be asking whoever's here to come out and support those types of efforts, because, you know, there was, yeah, so.
And the bus was one family on Highway Lane, killed it, right?
Yeah.
But that family's long gone now.
So we're gonna try and wrap up our Q&A in about 5 minutes here. We're gonna do that. There's gonna be plenty of us around the room when we're doing the rest of the meeting, and Michael will hit on the approach for the rest of that, but
I would like to mention that if there's anyone in Zoom that would like to make a comment or have a question, please raise your hands and I can call out to you to speak. Thank you.
I had one. Shall I go, or?
No, go ahead.
So I'll try to make this quick. I think we all have our intersections that are terrifying. I'm in Coscob. I know I filled out whatever I was supposed to fill out after last summer. I don't know if it made the list. It's the River Road, Valley Road intersection. It is, you take your life in your hands. So if it didn't make the list, I just wanted a clear, what do I do? Because we've got it, do I do a petition?
That location is on the list. It is one that has been looked at over the years. We had some options proposed a year, maybe 2 years ago now, and it got a lot of pushback, but I know it's come up again.
They're
and
right. I was here, yeah.
I know it continues to come up, so it's on our list, so it's something that we'll
Okay.
continue to look at, yeah.
Okay, so I'll help do whatever we need to do. And then I was just remembering when I was a very young girl and we first moved here, they had, when this was the high school, I think in May, like before prom season, they would put a crashed car out in front. Does anyone remember that? Maybe I'm the only really old person in the room, but I wonder if it, but I remember they did it. It terrified me. I was young, I wasn't driving, but that was a tool for your toolbox.
Good educational, yeah.
Hey, good evening. Just echo everyone else's comments. Thanks for doing this tonight. I appreciate it. My name is John Moss. I live in Riverside. I was here about 2 years ago. Fred and I had texted a lot about this issue, but when you talk, Jim, about the flashing lights, the crosswalk, the issue of focus that we have is a crosswalk from the Owen Oak, Wescombe Wood, and Hendry neighborhood to Riverside, and then by proxy to Eastern. There's a crosswalk that is heavily disregarded. I have been asking for an in-street crosswalk sign or the flashing crosswalk, and I know there's an expense, but my issue is the redundancies that are at other school crosswalks throughout towns, where there is a crossing guard, where there is an in-street crosswalk sign, or a flashing sign, whereas this crosswalk has neither of those nor a crossing guard. So much so that even the crosswalk is disregarded at pickup, where parents park in the crosswalk itself. So I understand the cost, but I'd ask that when you examine, especially this one particular crosswalk, that you understand that there are redundancies elsewhere and there's nothing for this crosswalk, and these are the children crossing that street. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more there, and then we have one online, and then we'll break from there.
Yep.
I realize everybody agrees that sidewalks are important, and I do as well, but they're not always available, especially in the winter. And I just had two suggestions that maybe would help this. I've noticed in a number of situations, especially near my house, when the intersections are cleared, I'm not talking about the main drag, but the intersections, the snow is pushed to the side of the road with the sidewalk. If they could only push the snow to the side without the sidewalk,
it wouldn't block the crosswalk, the ADA crosswalk. And it also ends up covering a fire hydrant, and it ends up covering the snow that I had just plowed myself. So that would be one suggestion, and I've seen it's not just on my corner, and I've seen it as I walk around, that this happens in a number of locations. The intersection is cleared to the side with the sidewalk. Doesn't make any sense. The other suggestion is, quite often the people, the homeowners don't know when the plows are done plowing. If there's some way that they could notify, put something on the internet that says, we're done, it's okay to clear your walkway, because I can't tell you how many times I've cleared the walkway only to wake up and find that the plows came through one more time. And it's not just, my hard work, but it's also the people that need to use it, the kids getting to school, et cetera, et cetera. So just those two costs, these suggestions are no cost, and I think they would make a big improvement. Anything else that we could do to get the town to work with the homeowners on keeping these sidewalks clear would be greatly appreciated, and maybe that's something that a little committee should get together and try to find out better ways to do this, because everyone knows, especially after these last two storms, half the sidewalks were unusable, people are in the roads, it's slippery for people walking, it's slippery for the cars. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We do definitely battle with snow and sidewalks, and it's definitely a challenge. And one of the things you mentioned is like, can we really try and let people know when we're done doing the plowing? And I can tell you that the way we plow, typically they're out there until, probably 6 or 8 hours after the snow stops. And then they'll come through normally early in the morning after they've been there, because a lot of times what we see is people clearing their driveways, pushing the snow out into the roadways, and then there's little piles of snow throughout the roads in many areas, and that's a lot of times what ends up getting pushed back out there. So we do our best. We understand. We understand and we appreciate all the help when people do clear their sidewalks and so forth. And we just, it's one of those things where sometimes it's gonna, it's gonna have to be a back and forth cooperative project. So, Gabrielle, you said you had one person online?
Yes. Joan Thacor, you are permitted to speak.
Hi, thank you. Yes, my name is Joan Thacor. I live in Riverside, and I want to thank all of you people there who are responsible for hosting this today. It certainly is timely. I wanted to reiterate something someone else said from Riverside about Riverside Avenue. I walk on Riverside Avenue often, particularly in the afternoon, and I can tell you that it's really an issue with speeding and reckless driving, particularly where the sidewalk ends and where it carries on. There are a few blind curves towards St. Paul's Church and beyond, in that vicinity where there are no sidewalks. Pedestrians and cyclists are putting their lives in their hands. They really are. And to the point where I'm so angry and fed up with how people are driving. So I'd love to have sidewalks. I'd love to have police there more often. And maybe the lights would help as well. But I think it's really an issue. And I don't want to wait for there to be an accident or several accidents before something is done about it. I think we need to address it now. There are 2 schools that children walk to from that neighborhood. So I think we need to push that, to the front of the list of priorities. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So if you want to go advance one slide. So in the back of the room, we have a whole bunch of different boards, and there are sort of 3 different exercises that if you are game for spending a little more time with us, we'd love to have your feedback. Other way. Yes, great. Okay, so over in that corner are all of the 16 policies written out, and there are sticky notes. So I encourage you to grab a sticky note, read the policies, and we'd really love to know how you think that policy can help safety. You know, many of the things you've mentioned are these policies can loop together in order to achieve a lot of the goals that I've heard so far tonight. So we'd really love to hear your feedback about how these policies you think will work, things you'd like to, augment or change or improve on them. So that's that station over, back that away. In the middle, we've got a whole other set of boards. That is the list of locations that are the priority location, the sort of the top of the priority locations on the prioritized investment network. We would love to know what sort of things you have seen in those locations. Again, we've got sticky notes and pens. Please go to town and write down sort of what are the challenges you face in those different locations, and we'll be including that in our analysis and also for the Route 1 locations and what we can help also provide to the team who's working on the Pell study. And then finally over here, these are a little bit more informational boards, but there is the sort of a deep dive, so you can look more closely at the recommendations for Route 1. You can look at the disproportionate risk, can't say that word anymore tonight. And you can also look at the results of the interactive mapping from last year. And so we really invite you to grab some sticky notes, grab some pens. We'll be circulating around, so feel free to ask us questions. And the fact sheets that Michael mentioned are also in the back of the room as well. Thank you guys so much for coming.
For those on Zoom, thank you for attending. I will now close the presentation.